Hello, YouTube. This is Shady Like a Tree, and I'm bringing you a team deathmatch on Afghan. This is one of my favorite new maps from Modern Warfare 2, and yes, I thought I'd bring you this gameplay. My topic for my next several topics are actually going to be something that I enjoy thoroughly. My dad says that I should become a history teacher because of my fascination with history and certain events in history, namely the JFK assassination, um, World War II, the American Revolution, Civil Rights era, things like that. But today, I'm going to discuss with you, and I want to get your opinions on this, so don't feel free to comment and tell me what you think. But I'm going to talk about the five most important events in world history and American history. So that's two separate ones in the 20th and 21st century. So there's four I guess sets of questions here. Um, my first is the five most important events for American 20th century history, which is from 1900 to 1999. Um, I would say World War II and the atomic bomb put together, the John F. Kennedy assassination, Pearl Harbor, if you don't consider that World War II, the invention of the assembly line by Ford, and I would also argue, the civil rights movement, the death of Martin Luther King, what it did for the civil rights movement, and so that's what I would say. Those five moments to me are the most important of the American 21st century. Worldwide, I would argue World War II and the atomic bomb again. I would argue the falling of the Berlin Wall. I would argue the Vietnam War, what that meant to the world. I would argue the internet, and I would also argue the assembly line again, just because of what it's done for all these industrialized nations. Now, for the 21st century, there isn't a whole lot to pick from because this is, as I'm commentating this, August the 23rd, 2010. So we've only had about 9 3/4 years of this decade, of this century, really, to determine, what has defined us as a nation and as a world. But I have to say, on both lists, it's blatantly obvious that the terrorist attacks on 9/11, or the attacks on 9/11, should be on both lists and should be number one on both lists, just for what it meant for America and what it meant for the world. And then as far as America goes, I would argue the invention of portable music and the iPod and such like that. I would also argue the invention of social media, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the MySpaces, the YouTubes, etc., etc. There's hundreds of them out there. Uh, would be both an American and a worldwide thing. Um, I think that as America goes in the first 10 years, with there not being a whole lot to choose from, I would argue that the financial collapse that we've experienced in this recession, this rather long and deep recession, will affect this century. I think that this might be one of the events that affects us most, just because of it was kind of a wake-up call. And I would argue that Barack Obama's election was kind of a big deal for a lot of people. To me, it doesn't really matter that he's black. I mean, I couldn't give a damn less if he was black, white, Hispanic, whatever. Just as so long as he's American and he follows American ideals, and he wants to better this country. I will never ever elect a foreign-born person to be president. Uh, no offense to Arnold Schwarzenegger or anybody like that, but I just I feel like you need to be born here and you need to be raised here and you need to have a considerable alliance to this country, to be president. So yeah, you got Barack Obama for the president in the world, 9/11 for both. I would argue the for America the financial recovery. I would also argue that the pandemics for the world and for the country have kind of been a big deal. We had the swine flu, we had the bird flu, we had SARS, we had God only knows what I'm forgetting. It's been so long. So I would say that that makes three for the world, four for America. Um, I would say, and then there's the social media. So that's four and five. So I'd say the other world event is kind of been the recent natural disasters and foreign effects. Like right now, currently, we just had a landslide in China. There's some Japan mine workers caught right now. The Russians just recently had smog over Moscow. I haven't really heard an update from that. We had the Gulf Shore spill, oil spill that they can't really figure out, and there have been a number of issues like that that have affected the world. And yeah, so I think that's defining moments. Those are the defining moments of the four questions. So leave a comment. Tell me what you think of mine. Share your own if you think they're different. I'll post all four in the description. So if you don't understand the question, I'll show what mine are. Um, and then who knows? Maybe in 50 years, if YouTube is still around, someone can commentate and be like, "Well, I remember when that happened," and yeah, that's still important. So this has been Shady Like a Tree, and I'm out.